Really, GGG? Really? I'm kidding. Honestly, I kind of saw this nerf coming because it did feel pretty strong, like being able to spam a no cooldown fast animation ability for no cost and just heal up like 20% or more of your maximum life each use was, yeah, pretty ridiculous. Though I am surprised they prioritized and chose to target this interaction so hard instead of, I don't know, some of those crazy Deadeye and Blood Mage builds, that bleed poison interaction that lets you just walk across the screen and wipe it for free, essentially. I'm not so sure about that. I heard there was a pretty strong Corrupting Cry Warrior build out there, but was it on the same level as all of that? I don't know. But anyways, Second Wind 3 was a big part of the build I recently made a video for, and they basically gutted that interaction. To be clear, you should not use Second Wind 3 anymore with that version of the build that I made for you. But I didn't want to leave you guys hanging, and I wanted to make this quick video that presents some alternatives if you guys were relying on the Second Wind 3 support gem as hard as I was. So firstly, if we're sticking with my Warbringer build, we still want to shout pretty often that Corpse Explosion effect is very useful for clearing. Off the bat, something you could do is just spec out of Blood Magic and back into mana, though this means you'll likely have to invest into some gear with some maximum mana rolls perhaps, or socket in Clarity somewhere as well, and definitely throw in some Efficiency 2 gems in there. Alternatively, you could stick with the Blood Magic route and simply cut down as much as you can on the costs of the War Cries, which is what I did on my Warbringer, and it honestly felt fine. Just remove Second Wind 3 obviously from both Fortifying and Infernal Cry, and try to cut down on the cost of multiplier gems where you can. Feels pretty manageable. By doing this, you can still also spam Infernal Cry before a boss fight starts and get those maximum rage stacks without, losing too much health at all. I would recommend a little extra support though in order to do this safely. I know some of you suggested the Urgent Call node on the passive skill tree, but honestly it only heals you 2% of your life each shout, which is a bit, but not quite enough for me to want to spend 4 passive skill points towards, especially when the lead-ups are honestly kind of underwhelming. And honestly, I just threw Time of Need back on instead of Scavenge Plating, and it felt like most of my problems had been solved. Some of you running physical damage versions of a shield build have also told me that you just rolled with Life Leech and things felt like they haven't changed at all. So yeah, the Second Wind 3 nerf hit my build pretty hard, but to be honest, there are already some pretty reasonable workarounds. On my Warbringer, I was still able to clear crowded maps and wipe bosses no problem, though you just can't be quite so liberal with the Warcry spam. Just try to tone it down a little since it's not quite as free anymore. Simulacrums, I would say, got a bit tougher, however, since we already can't Corpse Explode in that mode, but I mean, I ran one right after the tweaks I made, and I was able to get to round 15 on the first try, no problem. So it's a bit more difficult, I'm not gonna lie. You might have to pop a potion here or there until you can rely on that Cannibalism support gem when there are more mobs to wipe, but it's definitely still doable. However, I'll be honest, I did miss the healing from Second Wind 3, and I thought, is there a way to relive just how strong that was, even just a little bit? And there is. As a different Ascendancy. That's right, I finally went Titan, guys. So sure, you can stick with Warbringer and those suggestions I made earlier, but if you want to try and heal with Second Wind 3 again, you have to actually consume those cooldown charges, and if you are a Warbringer, you cannot do that. The cooldown never goes off and you never consume those uses, so with how Second Wind 3 works now, you do not heal from shouting, and that means that, well, if you want that healing, you can't spec into Warcaller's Bellow, and I'm not interested in any of the other nodes in Warbringer for this build, so to try and make this work again, I ran a Chaos Trial and made myself a Titan. So this is how it works. You equip Second Wind 3 back into both shouts, obviously, and we now have Armor Break 3 socketed into Resonating Shield again instead of Ulrich Smelting, since this skill gem gives us a high chance to gain endurance charges every time we break enemy armor, which we're doing all the time. This means during maps we are almost always at 3 endurance charges, which means you can bypass the cooldown of Fortifying Cry and Infernal Cry on demand as long as you have an endurance charge to expend. This is just an innate characteristic to both shouts. You don't need to socket them with an extra support gem or anything like that for the effect. You can just use them even if they are on cooldown by expending an endurance charge. And though both shouts will heal you up now, Fortifying Cry will basically heal you up every now and then since we are using it frequently while clearing, and it's a little harder to like time a heal with it. But I basically use Infernal Cry at this point as the more on-demand heal while mapping or doing simulacrums, which means you have around 3 cooldown charges total to heal up your life, which come back reasonably fast. I know it's technically 4 cooldown charges, but you are opening most fights with Fortifying Cry at full health, so you kind of miss out on one heal there, but overall this still feels really good to me. I also considered speccing into these healing when consuming endurance charge nodes here, which would be so good, but they do not currently work with the shouts from what I've tested. I'm not sure if this is a bug or if it is a wording issue, because the shouts say they expend endurance charges to bypass their cooldowns, not consume. But I mean, come on, GGG, throw us a bone here. Let the shouts consume endurance charges for the cooldown skip. Just change one word for us for this functionality, please. And yes, there are two big changes here from the Warbringer Ascendancy when it comes to gameplay and combat. One, you don't have access to the corpse explosion effect attached to your war cries anymore, obviously. I do miss it at times, but honestly, I don't mind it so much these days. I started running Fiery Death here on Fortifying Cry, which just lets me speed through maps, and I have a trail of explosions that blow up, and most monsters that are chasing me get wiped by it. This definitely feels like it helps with clearing if used in the right way, since there's a bit of delay before the corpses explode. But this is what I've been trying out, and it's been feeling pretty good. I may even mess around with Herald of Ash or something to help with clearing, and see what I can socket that with, but yeah, crowd clearing overall has been feeling pretty strong on this version of the build. I'm also carrying close combat here for boss fights. I just swap out Fiery Death with this one, mostly for pinnacles or a juiced up map boss or something. Speaking of which, boss fights are the second biggest change here. You obviously cannot spam Infernal Cry anymore to get maximum rage stacks, which isn't the end of the world. You just have to, you know, crank up the rage stacks the old-fashioned way with Resonating Shield socketed with Rage 3, and there are a few other skills that have Rage 3 as well. So it shouldn't be too difficult. The part where you have to pay attention is the maintaining rage stacks. You know, choose your Infernal Cries very carefully and tap bosses with Resonating Shield every now and then to keep those stacks up. Also, Simulacrums feel particularly easier on the Titan rather than the Warbringer variant of this build. Being able to get those on-demand heals from Infernal Cry and the random ones from Fortifying as you are fighting through the rounds, and honestly you just feel tankier on the Titan overall than the Warbringer. Getting to round 15 felt a lot easier, and I feel like you could make it through without even health potioning as a Titan if you are positioning and playing well enough, while as a Warbringer, I'll be honest, I really felt like I needed to life potion here and there to make it to the end. Unfortunately, Fiery Death does not help with clearing here, as the Delirium monsters don't leave corpses behind, but at least that's a support gem you can switch out for close combat like we do on bosses, rather than having your, you know, Ascendancy points be wasted in Warcaller's Bellow. Anyways, that's going to be it from me, another shorter video, but I wanted to make this one quickly because I know a lot of you guys are following my build, which will be linked in the description box of this video if you aren't and are interested. And yeah, this change to Second Wind 3 doesn't completely gut the build or anything, but it does greatly change where our life sustain has to come from, so I just wanted to update you on the build with the potential changes you can make to it in this video, and there's also going to be a PoE2 Ninja link down there in the description box for my current Titan version of the Shield Warrior build. But yeah, guys, I just wanted to speak on this real quick. Thanks for listening. What are some of the other methods that you guys have come up with for life sustain on your warrior builds if you have previously relied on the Second Wind 3 interaction? Let me know. I am super curious, but that's going to be it from me for now. I will see you next time.